It was a perfect morning in Ames, Iowa, a quintessential college town nestled in the heart of the American Midwest. Ames is a city that carries the charm of a small town while being home to Iowa State University, one of the leading academic institutions in the country. The city itself feels like a microcosm of the Midwest, where the hum of student life mixes seamlessly with the steady rhythm of its long-time residents, who go about their days at a relaxed pace. The town's tree-lined streets stretch out across neighborhoods filled with quaint houses, many of them decorated with flowers or small gardens, giving the city a warmth that only a close-knit community can offer. Ames is known for its strong sense of community, a place where you're as likely to run into students rushing to class as you are to meet families enjoying an afternoon at one of its many parks. It's the kind of town where college football games turn into local celebrations, and the streets are filled with supporters on game days, decked out in the cardinal and gold colors of the Iowa State Cyclones. Despite its lively spirit, Ames maintains an undeniable calm, where even the busiest parts of town never seem too chaotic. Beyond the campus, Ames boasts a picturesque landscape, where the flat plains of Iowa are interrupted by rolling hills and clusters of trees, offering a tranquil backdrop for those who call it home. On any given day, you can find locals and students enjoying walks through the city's many parks or spending time at the local cafes and restaurants that line the streets downtown. The city's parks are a haven for residents. Places like Ada Hayden Heritage Park or Brookside Park offer scenic trails, calm lakes, and areas for recreation where families gather for picnics or students take a break from their studies to relax in the fresh air. But it is perhaps Coldwater Golf Links that stands as one of Ames's true gems. Located just outside the busy heart of the university, the golf course offers a sanctuary for those looking to escape the bustle of daily life. Spanning acres of lush, green fairways, Coldwater Golf Links feels like a world apart from the busy campus life. Its manicured lawns and strategically placed bunkers offer a challenge to golfers, but more than that, the course is a place of peace and quiet. The sound of golf balls being struck and the occasional bird call are often the only sounds that break the stillness of the early morning. It's the kind of place where the hours seem to stretch out and the worries of the world feel far away. On this particular morning, the course was bathed in the soft, golden light of dawn. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows across the perfectly maintained greens, whilst the morning air was crisp and fresh, carrying with it the faint scent of dew-soaked grass. It was early September, that perfect time of year when summer hasn't quite left, but autumn is beginning to announce its presence. The sky was a soft blue, with just a few wisps of cloud, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves on the trees that lined the course. It was one of those mornings that made everything feel right in the world. For Celia Barquín Arozamena, Coldwater Golf Links was more than just a golf course. It was her sanctuary, a place where she could focus entirely on her craft without the distractions of daily life. A rising star in the world of women's golf, Celia had achieved more in her 22 years than most people dream of in a lifetime. Originally from Spain, she had come to Ames to attend Iowa State University on a golf scholarship, quickly becoming one of the university's most accomplished athletes. Her drive, determination, and infectious positivity made her a beloved figure, both on and off the golf course. That morning, Celia was out for a solo practice round, as she often did. The peacefulness of the golf course was something she cherished. Away from the crowds, away from the pressure, just her and the game she loved. As she moved from hole to hole, her focus was absolute. For Celia, golf wasn't just a sport, it was an art form, a challenge that demanded both physical skill and mental clarity. On that beautiful September morning, the world felt full of possibility. But little did Celia know, this day would not end with the same peace with which it had started. Beneath the calm and serenity of the golf course, something darker was lurking. Something that would shatter the sense of safety that Coldwater Golf Links and Ames in general had always provided. What followed was a tragedy that no one could have predicted. A senseless act of violence that would not only take Celia's life, but also leave an entire community in mourning. Ames, with all its charm and tranquility, would be forever changed by what happened that day. Celia Barquín Arozamena's journey began in the picturesque town of Puente San Miguel, nestled in the lush green hills of northern Spain. Born in 1996, Celia was a standout from a young age, both academically and athletically. Her parents encouraged her passions, and it quickly became evident that golf was her calling. She wasn't just talented, she was exceptional. By her teenage years, Celia was competing in national and international tournaments, catching the attention of coaches from across the globe. Puente San Miguel, known for its rich history and scenic beauty, provided the perfect backdrop for Celia's early years. The town, located in the Cantabria region, is home to rolling hills and picturesque landscapes, where traditions run deep and community bonds are strong. Growing up in such an environment, Celia developed a sense of determination and discipline that would define her both on and off the golf course. By the time she was 18, Celia had made a name for herself in the golfing world. She had captured the attention of college recruiters in the United States, where she saw an opportunity to continue both her athletic and academic career. With her characteristic courage and drive, Celia made the bold decision to leave her small hometown in Spain and accept a golf scholarship at Iowa State University. For many young athletes, the prospect of moving to a new country and balancing a demanding academic schedule with top-tier athletics would be overwhelming. But for Celia, this challenge only fueled her ambition. She wasn't just a golfer. She was also pursuing a degree in civil engineering, a rigorous academic path that required her to excel in both her studies and her sport. Her time at Iowa State University was marked by hard work, perseverance, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Celia's teammates and coaches admired her drive. She had a laser-like focus on the golf course, paired with a sense of calm and maturity that belied her age. Her ability to remain composed under pressure made her a formidable competitor, and her positive attitude made her a beloved figure both in the classroom and on the course. Her talent didn't go unnoticed. In 2018, Celia reached a significant milestone in her athletic career when she won the Big 12 Women's Golf Championship. This was a crowning achievement for Celia, solidifying her reputation as one of the best collegiate golfers in the country. Her victory was not just a personal triumph. It was a proud moment for Iowa State University and for her coaches, who saw her potential to make it to the professional ranks. Celia's success was rooted in more than just her natural talent. She worked tirelessly, often practicing in the early morning hours before classes and late into the evening when others had called it a day. She had a vision for her future, one that included turning professional and competing on the world stage. But her dreams extended beyond golf. Celia was also committed to her academic career and planned to complete her degree in civil engineering. Her ability to balance both worlds was a testament to her incredible discipline and passion. Despite her busy schedule, Celia's personality shone through in everything she did. She was known for her kindness, her infectious smile, and her ability to lift the spirits of those around her. Her friends and teammates often spoke about her generosity and how she always made time for those who needed support, even as she juggled her own demanding schedule. Celia was the type of person who inspired others, not just with her achievements, but with her unwavering positivity and determination. Yet tragically, just as her career was reaching its peak, Celia's life was cut short. On a quiet morning in September 2018, while practicing alone at Coldwater golf links in Ames, Iowa, Celia was brutally murdered by a stranger. Her death sent shockwaves through the Iowa State community, the golfing world, and her hometown in Spain. The senselessness of the crime left everyone reeling, and the world lost not just a talented athlete, but a young woman with a bright future and so much more to give. Celia's memory, however, lives on. Iowa State University, in partnership with her family, established a memorial scholarship in her name, ensuring that her legacy continues to inspire future generations of female athletes and students. The scholarship serves as a reminder of Celia's passion for both academics and sports, and honors her commitment to excellence in everything she did. Celia Barquín Arozamena was more than just a gifted golfer. She was a beacon of hope, perseverance, and kindness. Her life, though tragically cut short, continues to inspire those who knew her, and even those who didn't. Her legacy is one of hard work, determination, and a spirit that will never be forgotten. While Celia was climbing the ranks of the golfing world, another young man's life was descending into chaos. Collin Richards, born just a few months before Celia, had lived a vastly different life. Raised in small-town Iowa, Richards' childhood was marked by instability, poverty, and a lack of direction. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was living on the streets, bouncing from one homeless camp to another. Richards had a lengthy criminal record that included burglary and assault. He was no stranger to violence, and in the weeks leading up to Celia's murder, his behavior became increasingly erratic. Those who knew him described him as a man on the edge, Driven by anger and desperation, he had no steady job, no stable home, and no prospects for the future. But perhaps the most alarming sign of Richard's downward spiral was a series of disturbing statements he made to friends in the days before the murder. He expressed a desire to rape and kill a woman, words that now ring with chilling prescience. His threats were dismissed as idle talk by those around him, but Richard was clearly teetering on the brink of something far more dangerous. On the morning of September 17, 2018, his simmering rage found a target in the form of a young, unsuspecting golfer named Celia Barquín Arozamena. The morning started like any other for Celia. Dressed in her usual golfing attire, she headed out for her solo practice round at Coldwater golf links. The course stretched out before her, a vast, rolling landscape of pristine greens and quiet beauty. Celia thrived in the solitude, taking advantage of the early hour when few people were around. The crisp air, the rhythmic sound of her club hitting the ball. It was her sanctuary, a place to refine her skills and mentally prepare for upcoming tournaments. By 9 a.m., Celia had reached the 7th hole, a more secluded area of the course bordered by trees. She was focused, practicing her swings, completely unaware that someone else had entered her world. Collin Richards, a homeless man who had been lurking in the area, was not there for the same peaceful respite that Celia sought. Richards had been wandering, consumed by dark thoughts he had shared with others, thoughts of violence, thoughts of murder. From the moment he saw Celia, a lone figure in the distance, his intentions became terrifyingly clear. He followed her quietly, his presence masked by the trees and the natural barriers of the course. Celia, absorbed in her practice, had no reason to suspect that anyone was watching her, much less that someone was planning to attack. As she lined up her next shot, Richards closed the distance. The exact moment when Celia realized she was not alone remains unknown, but it is clear that she fought back with everything she had. The peaceful calm of the golf course was violently interrupted by a brutal confrontation. Richards, armed with a knife, attacked her viciously. His strikes were relentless, stabbing her multiple times as Celia struggled to defend herself. She fought with the strength of an athlete accustomed to pushing her limits, but Richards was unstoppable in his violent rage. The struggle was grueling and merciless. Each stab tore through her body, and yet Celia fought, perhaps out of a sheer will to survive, to escape the unthinkable. Her athleticism gave her some advantage, but the savagery of the attack was overpowering. Richard, consumed by his dark fantasies, showed no mercy. The peaceful serenity of the 7th hole was transformed into a nightmare. In those final moments, alone and out of sight from any help, Celia's life ebbed away. Her body, broken and bloodied, was left lying in the tall grass, hidden from view. The vibrant, determined athlete who had faced countless challenges on the golf course had fought her hardest battle, but even her immense strength couldn't save her from the monstrous act of violence that had been unleashed upon her. By the time the assault was over, the silence of the Coldwater golf links had returned, but it was a hollow silence. Celia's body lay motionless, drenched in blood, a stark contrast to the once peaceful surroundings. The 7th hole, once a sanctuary for her practice, had become the site of her brutal death. The beauty of the course was now marred by the horrific scene. Bloodstains on the grass, signs of the struggle that had taken place. It was a senseless, horrific act of violence that ended the life of a young woman with so much promise. Celia Barquín Arozamena's light was extinguished on that quiet, sunny morning, leaving a trail of devastation for her family, friends, and the entire community to grapple with in the days that followed. As the morning wore on, golfers began to notice something unusual. Celia's golf bag, still sitting near the 9th hole with no sign of its owner. It wasn't like Celia to leave her belongings unattended. Concerned, course employees began searching the grounds, hoping to find her safe and sound. It didn't take long before they stumbled upon the horrifying scene. Celia's lifeless body, covered in stab wounds, was discovered just off the 7th hole. The shock was immediate and profound. How could this have happened here, in the peaceful setting of a golf course, to someone as beloved as Celia? Police were called to the scene, and the investigation began in earnest. As word of the tragedy spread, the community of Ames, and indeed the entire world of sports, was plunged into grief. How could something so horrific happen to someone so full of life and potential? As investigators combed through the crime scene, one name quickly rose to the top of the suspect list: Collin Richards. Witnesses had seen him in the area that morning, and he had a history of violent behavior. It didn't take long for police to track him down. He was arrested later that day, still covered in blood, with the murder weapon, a knife, found nearby. Richards was taken into custody, and the evidence against him was damning. DNA from the crime scene linked him directly to the murder, and witnesses placed him at the scene around the time of Celia's death. His arrest was swift, but for the friends and family of Celia Barquín Arozamena, it did little to ease the pain of losing someone so special. As the trial for Celia's murder approached, a clearer picture of Collin Richards' deeply troubled life began to emerge. Raised in an environment riddled with chaos, instability, and violence, Richard was exposed to hardship from an early age. His formative years were marked by neglect, dysfunction, and the presence of criminal behavior, shaping his trajectory toward a life of crime. He had frequent run-ins with law enforcement during his teenage years, engaging in petty thefts and assaults, behaviors that would escalate as he grew older. By his 20s, Richards was a familiar face in the local criminal justice system. His pattern of escalating violence, combined with his involvement in illegal activities, signaled a dangerous shift in his behavior. Each arrest seemed to solidify his descent into a darker mindset. Richards' life became increasingly chaotic, his brushes with the law more severe. Judges, probation officers, and police all recognized him as someone who was on a path of self-destruction, but little could be done to stop it. A critical factor that fueled Richards' increasingly dangerous behavior was his addiction to methamphetamine. The drug, notorious for heightening paranoia and aggression, only deepened the instability in his life. Richards had started using methamphetamine in his late teens, and by the time he was 22, it had taken hold of his life completely. The erratic behavior he exhibited, mood swings, aggression, and violent outbursts, was amplified by the drug's powerful effects. It was not only addiction, but a downward spiral into a mental state where reality became warped and violent fantasies flourished. In the weeks leading up to Celia's murder, Richards was living in a makeshift tent near the Coldwater golf links, the site that would eventually become the scene of his horrific crime. Isolated and paranoid, Richard cut himself off from society. He had no job, no prospects for a stable future, and no family or community to rely on. His days were filled with wandering, fueled by his drug addiction and growling anger toward the world. He had lost any sense of direction or purpose, and his mental state deteriorated with each passing day. At this point, his anger was not just internal, it had reached a boiling point. Richards frequently expressed violent fantasies, telling people he wanted to harm someone. Friends and acquaintances would later reveal that he had spoken about wanting to rape and kill a woman. But these alarming statements were dismissed as idle talk. In reality, these were dark fantasies that had been festering in Richards' mind for weeks, perhaps even months, and were building toward a terrifying climax. When Richard spotted Celia on the morning of September 17, 2018, something clicked inside him. She was alone, vulnerable, and represented the perfect opportunity for him to act on his violent urges. It wasn't a well-planned attack, but in a way, it was premeditated. He had been waiting for the right moment to unleash the anger and violence that had been building inside him for so long. Richard's decision to attack Celia was spontaneous, but it was the culmination of years of growing rage and instability. The violence that erupted that morning was the tragic result of a life of neglect, addiction, and a long-standing pattern of criminal behavior. Richards had reached a point of no return, and when he saw Celia, his fantasies of violence turned into reality. In court, experts would later attempt to explain Richards' mental state, how his life of drug abuse and emotional instability led him to this point. But no explanation could fully account for the horror of what had happened that morning, or the devastation that followed. For those who knew him, Richards was a ticking time bomb, a man whose violent tendencies had been left unchecked for far too long. Unfortunately, Celia became the victim of his unchecked rage, caught in the crossfire of a man who had lost control of his life and his mind. The trial of Collin Richards was swift. The evidence against him was overwhelming, from the blood found on his clothes to the murder weapon found near his tent. There was no doubt in the minds of investigators or the public, Collin Richards was responsible for the brutal murder of Celia Barquín Arozamena. The trial itself was emotional. Celia's parents, who had flown from Spain to attend, sat in the courtroom, listening to the horrific details of their daughter's final moments. The prosecution laid out the sequence of events with precision. How Richards had stalked Celia across the golf course, how he attacked her with a knife, and how her body was found by golfers just hours later. Richards' defense team argued that he was mentally unwell, driven to commit the crime by a combination of drug addiction and untreated mental illness. But this argument did little to sway the jury. Richards had made his intentions clear before the attack. He had wanted to kill someone, and on that fateful day, he chose Celia. In November 2019, Richards was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. For many, the sentence was just, but it did little to bring back the bright future that had been snuffed out. Celia's family expressed relief that Richards would never be able to harm anyone again, but the pain of losing their daughter, sister, and friend was still raw. Celia's death sent shockwaves through the international sports community. She was more than just a talented golfer. She was a symbol of hope and perseverance. Her teammates at Iowa State were devastated, as were her coaches and friends. But the outpouring of love and support from people across the world helped keep her memory alive. The university held a memorial in her honor, where hundreds gathered to remember her spirit, not just as an athlete, but as a kind-hearted person who impacted everyone she met. Her close-knit group of friends remembered her as more than just a fierce competitor. She was a friend, confidant, and role model. In Spain, her hometown also held a memorial service to honor her. The small community of Puente San Miguel came together to mourn the loss of one of their brightest stars. The town that had seen her grow from a promising young golfer into an international sensation was left grappling with the devastation of her untimely death. In the weeks that followed her murder, Iowa State University established the Celia Barquín Arozamena Memorial Scholarship, a fund designed to help young female athletes pursue their dreams. It was a fitting tribute to someone who had made such a profound impact on the world of sports in such a short time. Celia's murder resonated far beyond Iowa State University and the world of golf. It highlighted a pressing issue that women face across the globe: personal safety in public spaces. Women, whether athletes or not, have always had to be mindful of their surroundings, constantly aware of the dangers that can arise in even the most benign environments. The fact that Celia was attacked while simply practicing her sport on a peaceful golf course was a stark reminder of how vulnerable women can be, even in places that feel safe. Her murder sparked conversations across the world about how society can better protect women and what measures need to be in place to prevent such tragedies from happening again. In the aftermath of her death, several golf courses in the United States and Europe implemented new safety protocols. Some increased surveillance, while others offered more secure parking and better communication channels for emergencies. The legacy of Celia's death became not just about her life and her accomplishments, but also about ensuring that other women would not face the same fate. What leads someone to commit such an unspeakable act? This was a question many grappled with, as more details about Collin Richards' life came to light. Born and raised in Iowa, Richard had a childhood marked by instability. His father was absent, and his mother struggled to raise him while dealing with her own issues. By the time he was a teenager, Richards was already on a path of self-destruction. Drugs, alcohol, and violent outbursts became a regular part of his life. Multiple stints in juvenile detention facilities didn't help curb his behavior. If anything, they only hardened him. As he entered his 20s, Richards found himself homeless. The structure of a regular life, work, home, community, was beyond his reach. Instead, he turned to crime and addiction. His arrests for theft, assault, and drug possession painted a clear picture of someone who had lost control, but what went unnoticed were his cries for help. Richards had expressed violent desires in the past, telling friends that he wanted to rape and kill someone, but those who heard him thought little of it. To them, it was the talk of a troubled man blowing off steam. No one took the warning seriously until it was too late. After his arrest, Richards showed no remorse. In fact, he seemed detached from the gravity of what he had done. This only added to the horror of the situation. How could someone so young, the same age as his victim, harbor such hate? While Celia Barquín Arozamena is remembered for her incredible achievements on the golf course, those who knew her best remember her for so much more. Her friends and family speak of her kindness, her sense of humor, and her unshakable determination. She was a woman who dreamed big and worked hard, inspiring everyone around her to do the same. Her legacy lives on through the scholarship fund established in her name at Iowa State University, helping young female athletes pursue their dreams, just as she did. Each year, new students are given the chance to carry forward Celia's passion for both academics and sports, a fitting tribute to someone who embodied excellence in both. Celia's story is also a reminder of the preciousness of life. She was a rising star, poised to conquer the world of professional golf, and her future seemed limitless. But in an instant, that future was stolen from her. For those left behind, the grief is overwhelming. But so too is the determination to ensure that Celia's life continues to inspire others. Celia Barquín Arozamena's life was tragically cut short by an act of senseless violence, but her memory endures. She was a young woman full of promise, a talented athlete, and a beloved friend. Her death serves as a stark reminder of the dangers women face, even in the most serene settings, and the need for vigilance and protection in public spaces. Through the efforts of her family, friends, and the institutions that continue to honor her, Celia's legacy lives on. Her story, though marked by tragedy, also shines as a beacon of hope and resilience. As we reflect on her life, we are reminded to live with purpose, to pursue our passions with the same drive that Celia did, and to cherish every moment. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth looks at true crime cases. Stay safe, and remember, even in the darkest of times, the light of a life well lived can shine on forever.